Imagine, you turn on the news and the White House, that very strict classical one from the history textbooks, looks as if someone has just filmed a new apocalypse movie there. On one side, instead of a neat wing, there is a huge wound. Piles of rebar, cavities in the ground, machinery, workers in hard hats running around, voices shouting over radios. Where for decades there was the tidy facade of the East Wing, there is now a huge excavation pit. The builders have taken down an entire section of the building in less than a week, as if they had simply cut out a piece of history like a knife through butter. And all of this is not for a roof repair, not for a new parking lot. On this spot, they're going to build a private palace inside the White House, a 3-story ballroom with an area of about 90,000 square feet. To grasp the scale, you need to honestly answer one question: why tear down a wing of a historic building that is known all over the world at all? The reason is simple and absurd at the same time. The old rooms have become too small for the ambitions. The traditional halls of the White House were created in an era when a state reception meant, at most, a few hundred people, live music, and long speeches. Today, it is a mix of political show, television picture, closed-door negotiations, and an unimaginable level of service. The new ballroom is supposed to solve everything at once. It must hold up to several thousand guests, look richer than most royal palaces, be reinforced enough to survive any crisis, and all this just a few meters away from a building that is more than 2 centuries old. For this monster to be able to stand at all, they first need to create a perfect concrete slab as its base. And here the real concrete marathon begins. In the coming weeks, Washington will see one of the largest concrete pours since the construction of the Pentagon. The line of concrete mixers will stretch for kilometers. Each truck will bring its portion of the mix, and for 18 hours in a row, the concrete will be poured without a single pause. You simply cannot hit pause at all. If even one section has time to set before the neighboring one, a hidden weak zone appears inside the monolith, like a crack in glass that you cannot see yet, but later all the loads will travel exactly along that line. That is why the engineers treat this pour like heart surgery. They are simply not allowed to make mistakes. Under the future hall, something is being built that the guests will never see: a steel forest of rebar. Usually, in office buildings, the metal bars are laid with a larger spacing. It is cheaper and faster that way. Here, it is a different league. The rebar runs almost every 15 centimeters. Thick steel bars are woven so tightly that they create the feeling of a real grid under a skyscraper. The workers walk calmly over this framework as if it were not a pile of metal, but an already finished floor. And this is not done out of boredom. On top of it, a complex is going to stand whose mass is comparable to that of a warship. The White House is turning into a real fort, just dressed in a costume of marble and gold. But the most mind-bending part is not the new structures, but the old ones. Part of the new complex literally adjoins the original foundation from the late 18th century. These stones were laid under the first presidents. They survived fires, wars, and hundreds of political storms. And now the engineers have to hang millions of kilograms of new architecture on these old blocks, so that not even a microscope could find a single extra crack there. How is that done? They carefully dig under the old foundation and create a new concrete spine. In effect, a building that is more than 2 centuries old is being given a new load-bearing backbone, calculated for the loads of the 21st century. An error in the calculations here does not just mean a crack in a wall, it is already a question not only of beauty, but also of national security. A foundation turned into a bulletproof vest. The concrete for this project is also not in the category of ordinary. At a plant in Maryland, it is mixed according to a special recipe. Steel fibers are added inside, and the monolith turns into a giant shock-proof slab. Such a foundation is designed to withstand explosive loads that would simply make a standard building crumble. But this mix has its whims. Along the entire journey from the plant to the construction site, it has to be kept within a narrow temperature corridor, a couple of degrees up or down, and the properties are no longer the same. And all this while the concrete trucks are weaving through the streets of Washington, past rallies, traffic jams, and security cordons. Each batch is recorded, tested, measured. The data goes into an archive. In a few decades, when someone wants to add something on top again, the engineers will have a complete passport of what this new palace is standing on. As soon as the concrete gains strength, the show for the spectators begins. By the spring of 2026, anyone walking through Lafayette Square will see a steel skeleton rising above the White House that overtakes the historic part itself in height. The first level of the new hall is not just a floor, it is a space as tall as 2 ordinary houses. The task is simple. A person must walk in and automatically tilt their head upward. For this, such an amount of metal is brought onto the site that it would be enough to assemble an entire collection of statues of liberty. Every beam is marked, each one goes into a strictly defined point according to a predetermined scheme. There is no room for by eye here. If you mix up the sequence, you can stack the most expensive metal Jenga in the world. A hall without supports, not a single column in sight. The main space of this complex is the ballroom. Its key feature? A huge span without a single column in the middle. The guests must see a perfectly clean horizon, not a forest of supports. The solution is colossal steel trusses that stretch along the building and hold the ceiling at the edges. These structures are so heavy that they are delivered only at night along pre-calculated routes with special escorts and street closures. All so that when the doors open, the guests feel not as if they are in a conference hall, but in the private palace of some oil magnate. Number 1. A kitchen that can feed entire delegations. On the north side of the building, a separate block is rising, a kitchen complex at the level of one of the best hotels in the world. There will be a row of industrial ovens that bring the temperature to extreme levels in a matter of minutes, refrigerated rooms, each the size of a small apartment, equipment capable of running thousands of plates through itself in a single evening. The dishwashers will deliver service as if each plate were being polished to a shine by hand. The system is organized so that it is possible to feed several thousand people at once without any fuss, and at the same time, none of the guests will even guess what kind of scale is hidden behind the wall. On the second level above the hall, there is a closed gallery. It is a space from which you can see everything, and at the same time remain almost invisible. Behind tinted glass lies a separate zone for the president and a narrow circle of guests. A bar, a bathroom, their own elevator with an exit directly into the residential part of the residence. From here, you can, in 2 minutes, go from the office to the view over the hall with thousands of guests, and then disappear just as quickly if the evening starts going in an undesirable direction. For the security service, this is a perfect control point, and for the host himself, it is a place from which he literally rules the ball without stepping down into it. The third floor looks boring only on the drawings. In reality, it is the heart of the engineering of the new complex. The task? To cool and ventilate a space with very high ceilings that can be entered by thousands of people at the same time, while an enormous glass wall is trying to turn the hall into a greenhouse. The solution? Air distribution units the size of buses and separate cooling plants that are supplied through their own power corridor. The air ducts are so large that in some sections, staff can move inside them at full height, like in mini tunnels. This is no longer just air conditioners, but a full-fledged climate control system that keeps the perfect temperature regardless of what is happening below. The most striking element of the facade is the gigantic glass panels. They are unlike ordinary windows. Each one is a huge thickness of glass, reinforced by layers designed to withstand shots, blows, and pressure fluctuations. In a normal building, such glass would be used to protect a bank vault. Here, they turn an entire wall into a transparent showcase of power. These panels must withstand weather anomalies, vibrations from helicopters, and everything that can happen on a territory where every movement is under control. That is why the production is split between several factories that work practically without pauses. When the frame is closed with glass and metal, the moment comes for which the rich spectators come here, the interior. Imagine, you enter an unfinished space, bare concrete, but the scale is such that the people at the other end of the hall look like tiny figures. Without finishings, it looks like a hangar, but it is already clear. This will not just be a reception room, but an arena for evenings of power. Here they will dance, sign agreements, negotiate multi-billion deals, and at the same time pretend that all of this is just an evening in a beautiful hall. They start with the floor. Before even a single piece of stone is laid, a heating system is spread over the entire area, a huge circuit divided into zones. Each one can be regulated separately, warmer in one place, a bit cooler in another. Because marble is incredibly beautiful, but without heating, it turns any dance into an icy ordeal. Then the stone comes into play. They choose a variety with golden veins. Each slab is like a small art object. It is cut into a complex geometry to assemble a perfect stone pattern on the floor, which is already expensive in itself even before anyone walks across it. Then attention shifts upward. The ceiling is divided into sections, deep coffers that create volume and structure and provide the perfect surface for future chandeliers and lighting. The main lights of the hall are no longer lamps, but crystal structures weighing tons. Each element is cut and polished by hand and assembled into a huge hanging system. The slabs above them are reinforced in such a way that, according to calculations, this part of the ceiling could withstand the mass of a small airplane. In a normal house, for the sake of such a chandelier, you would have to rebuild the whole building. Here it is just another line in the budget. The walls of the future hall turn into a separate work of art. They are covered with light-colored fabrics. Panels with a soft texture are created, framed by stucco and decorative elements. But behind the beautiful picture, there is another function: sound control. In a space of this size, without these solutions, people would talk as if they were in a sports hall. Everything would merge into a single roar. Here, however, the material layers are chosen in such a way that conversations at table level remain private, even if an orchestra is playing in the hall. Visually, it is pure luxury. Technically, it is a finely calculated system of acoustic treatment. Now, let us imagine the first official reception. In the hall, there are hundreds of tables, each one laid as if it were the final frame of a commercial shoot. The light above each table can be adjusted separately to create a more intimate atmosphere in one place and emphasize the importance of the guests in another. The service turns into choreography. The waiters emerge from hidden doors with timing down to the second. The hot dishes do not have time to cool. The dirty dishes disappear so quickly that the guests do not even notice where everything goes and where it comes from. Somewhere behind the walls, the chef is directing the process, watching everything on monitors like a conductor. This is no longer just a kitchen, but a controlled performance for 2,000 people. Even the restroom area here is part of the overall picture. A large number of stalls, zones with full-height mirrors, places where you can fix your hair, change your shoes, and at the same time discuss a new contract with someone. All of this is done so that even at the peak of the event, the guests do not stand in lines and do not feel discomfort. And yes, the finishing elements here are in no way more modest than in the main hall. Metal, expensive materials, light, nothing about it says secondary. The moment when the palace opens. And then the day comes when the last scaffolding is taken down. The chandeliers are switched on, the curtains are smoothed out. The White House, about which people said that it was big enough for emperors and popes, receives a new world inside itself. Not just a hall, but a space where luxury, engineering, and politics live in a single script. From now on, a reception at the White House is not only about speeches and protocol, it is about entering a place that has been transformed step by step into one of the most expensive and technologically advanced halls on the planet. And it is precisely these kinds of stories that we break down on the channel Luxury Life. Here it is all about wealth, luxury, and the lives of the richest people on the planet. Thank you for watching, and go check out our previous episodes right now.